Dude, and thanks so much for being on the show, man. I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time.
Thanks for the invite. I'm excited.
The first question I want to ask, which I know a lot of people who meet you also wonder, what do you actually do for a living?
I do as little as possible. No, actually, I do a lot. I have a handful of local businesses, plus I have a bunch of investment interests. And um, right now, though, the group is kind of my passion project, so that I focus on the group.
And I think that's actually a great place. We can start there and then we'll kind of unpack all the different things. But what is the group and how did it get started?
Ooh, the group, it's a special, special place. I mean, the way it got started was, and that'll kind of lead to what the group is, but Nick McCoy, who he's a part of the Jiu-jitsu Academy as well, and a good friend, we met for coffee. We kind of just spoke about different things we were doing and what we wanted. And I remember at that meetup too, we had coffee. Um, I said, I want to build community. I want to be a pillar of the community. And we were talking about how artificial a lot of the networking groups were. You sit there and it's difficult to run a business, but to be able to, if you go to a kind of a networking group, you have to have your business card, your elevator pitch, and it just seems so artificial. And it's difficult to really connect with people. You could be standing there, you can introduce yourself to people, but there isn't that connection. So basically we came to terms with, how about this? You invite two people, I'll invite two people, no business cards, and let's see what happens. Just have a personal talk. And immediately people, I think the first 7 meetups, somebody cried. And we talked about business, we talked about personal. And then what the byproduct of it is, people's businesses started to blossom because now they felt a kind of a sense of support within the community. So that's really what the group is. It's kind of just a supportive community of like-minded individuals that are heart-centered, that really want to help each other. And then what ends up happening is they make friends and their business blossoms.
And it's entrepreneurs, professionals, pretty much anyone local who wants to come on a Friday and meet amazing heart-centered people.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that are unemployed. We have college students that come. So it's open to everyone.
One of the coolest things about the group is that it's anti-networking. Like you said, that's my favorite term because
Perfect.
so many of the BNIs or the other networking groups you go to, it is so manufactured and awkward. And it's like, let me wait for you to stop talking so I can thrust my business card at you.
Right.
And all of that nonsense, where this, at least from my perspective, always feels like people who like each other getting together on a Friday to have a coffee, share a pastry, and talk about what's important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing too, there is a place. There's a place for chamber events. There's a place for BNI. Absolutely. I suggest people do that, but I want to be different because, and everything I do in my life, I do because I need it and I want it. So for the group, I wanted community. I wanted people, I wanted new friends. I want to learn more about other people. And that's what the group is. You come, you learn about each other, you support each other. And a lot of times too, and I've seen it because we've had 65 businesses form just from the group, which is amazing in the last year and a half. And so, but it's just a byproduct of people trying to support each other.
And how have you been able to build this community so quickly with so many people wanting to show up? Because there's not much format besides two people get to introduce themselves. And then there's sometimes an open discussion, sometimes we run out of time. How have you built this?
Um, I would say, honestly, by being heart-centered, I make sure that I meet with everybody for coffee. I mean, I started this initiative of 1 coffee a day since April of 2023, and now turn into 5, just because we every week we get about 10 to 15 new members. But I make sure that I show them what I want out of the community, what I give, and then what I kind of expect back, and it's just reciprocal. So it's really just this concerted effort to really make connections with everybody that's in the community.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation because selfishly, I want to learn your secrets because I'm trying to build community. And there does seem to be something about the fact that you meet with everyone once they join, you go get coffee with them. Do you feel like that's the secret sauce that brings people back, that wants them to invite their friends to come?
Yeah, I think it's because people have asked. We've had people try to say, "Hey, let's open another chapter here and there," but to try to get that secret sauce, it's difficult because it starts with the person that kind of leads it. Like for me, the group isn't me. For me, I always say it's the community, but I do go heart-centered. I'm always, messaging people, how you doing? How's your day going? And it's this extra effort of not I don't treat you like a number. And again, it's because what I want. This is how I want to be treated. So that's how I treat other people.
So it's kind of like the ultimate implementation of the golden rule. Treat
Yes.
other people how you want to be treated. If you want community and friends, go out and be someone who other people want to be around.
Exactly. Yeah.
What does your phone look like? Does your phone look
Oh,
like 300 unread messages from all these people?
yes. Well, and that's the thing. I have to be constantly kind of proactive about it because it does. It gets like after we get done with this podcast, I'll have 38 missed messages. I'll have voicemails. I'll have Instagram DMs. And so it's a process of making sure I take care of all my businesses, all the responsibilities, but also reach back to people.
Do you have a system for that? How does it work?
There. That's the system. And it's funny because a lot of one of my businesses is business consulting. I help people with efficiencies to help them scale. I tell them how to do it. I don't necessarily follow it myself, but I do make sure that I stay consistent. If I let kind of the ADHD kind of just go, I'll be all over the place. So I make sure I'm on a schedule. I stay on a schedule and then just continue from there. But it's a constant process.
What comes up for me as you share that is that the things that work in business to be most effective, to be most efficient, sometimes don't work with people.
Right.
I know Stephen Covey talks a lot about being efficient versus being effective. Like with people, you want to be effective. You don't necessarily want to just boom, 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 like respond to the most people if they feel like it's heartless
Right.
and they're getting an AI bot and not you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why I know I can get efficient, have just a standard text message that I send to everyone, but then that doesn't come from the heart. So that's why I customize everything I send out, emails, phone calls, I've been starting to do the voice messaging thing. And so I always thought it was for older people, but now I'm doing it and I see it because you can convey kind of your feelings through a voice message versus a text message.
So much gets lost in a text message and
Yeah.
you can, like you said, convey emotion. You can navigate more challenging topics or just let people know like, wow, I'm actually really excited to talk to you right now.
Right.
Yeah, I love the audio message. Don't sleep on the audio message. And okay, one more question on this, just because I'm so curious. Do you spend time at night? Like, do you always try and clear the deck before you go to bed if you have a bunch of messages? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I stay very disciplined on my schedule. 2:30 in the morning. And then from 2:30 to 3, I meditate. From 3 to 6, I answer emails. I send out text messages. Well, not the text messages because I don't want to wake people up, but I'll send out the emails, take care of some of the businesses that I have to take care of. Jiu-jitsu every morning. I have to do jiu-jitsu every morning. That's kind of like my active meditation. And then throughout the day, I do my coffee meetups. And then in between, that's when I do my messaging back. I'll do my social media posts. So there's a lot, but pretty much at 6 o'clock, I shut off. I make sure I'm present. I'm present for my wife, and it's definitely. And plus, by then, that's like my midnight. So by then, I'm already kind of tired. So I kind of wind down at 6 o'clock.
So we got to get into this. For those who heard that 2:30
Yeah.
mark,
Right.
I want to ask the question, why do you wake up at 2:30 a.m. every morning?
Well, initially, I've been doing that for years. I had always woken up at 2:30 with this kind of need to help somebody, help people. And I meet with a lot of people, so everybody struggles. So when I hear somebody struggling, I want to make sure I'm up. First thing I do is think of ideas. How can I help them? How can I help their business? How can I help them on a personal level? And then I came to this kind of epiphany that that one day I realized on the anniversary of my best friend's death that it all hit me that at one point, again, he checked all the boxes. He had a great job. He was an architect. He had a great wife. He had a great home. He lived in Seattle. And so one day, like 25 years ago, he came and I got this call, 2:30 in the morning. It's a missed call. And so I call him back when I woke up. And at that point, I woke up at 3:30, 4 o'clock. For me, that was normal. So I call him back, no message. I was like, hey, Chris, call me back whenever you're free. Nothing back. A few hours later, I get a call from his wife. His wife was frantic. And what ended up happening was he had driven down from Seattle to Scottsdale. That's where I was based. And he had called me. And then as soon as he hung up with me, the time of death was he had committed suicide at 2:30, 2:31 really. So it was right. He had called me and then I didn't answer. And then he jumped out and ended up committing suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's heavy, but again, it hit me that that's why I want to help, because I've always lived my life where I always want to be there for someone that needs me, and I wasn't there for him. So it became kind of a 25-year process of 2:30, wake up. Who can I help? Who can I help?
And that's 7 days a week kind of thing.
7 days a week, no matter if I go to bed at midnight, if I go to bed at 1, I will always wake up at 2:30.
And how does that look from a sleep perspective? What would you say your average sleep is per night?
I'd say probably 4 to 5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're one of those few people who can ride the line of
Yeah.
less than
I always say I don't recommend it, but I feel fine. I mean, I wake up at 2:30. I don't wake up groggy. I wake up ready to go.
to an alarm, just
No, I just wake up.
naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've shared that story with me before. It's so powerful, and it feels like there's a piece consciously that you're getting up at 2:30, but there's probably something deep within you that's waking you up at that time too, that
Right.
is still in there from that traumatic experience.
Right. Well, I mean, guilt, to be honest. I don't know if I could have saved him if I would have picked up the phone, but I feel like at least I would have been able to speak to him if I would have answered the phone at 2:30.
Is that something that you've worked through? And we're in a men's group together, so I feel like I
Yeah.
can ask you this, but
Yeah.
is that something you're working through? Is that something that you've kind of let sit idly?
Yeah, I think everything's always a process. So I think I'm definitely working through it, but I don't I still think of it as a blessing, because to me he's an angel, and he gave me my mission is to help people, and he's really kind of the impetus of it. And it's I think, like I said, I'm continuously working on it, but at the same time I'm doing good.
Shout out to the men in the men's group if you're watching this.
Yeah, that's right.
That is something that I'm really excited about right now. This men's group that we're in together, I'm helping do another one, and it just feels like, especially now, I mean, probably forever, but especially now, men need a space to come together to have these conversations that are a step deeper than the normal chit chat. Like the Super Bowl happened yesterday. You're not having the most deep,
Right.
transformative, life-changing conversations with your buddies at the Super Bowl, probably.
Right. Right. No, exactly. And and again, the men's group is something that I needed myself. And so it's just kind of a process. It's been great. I mean, we've had it for I think a few weeks now,
Mhm.
and every week I'm learning something, plus the accountability partners. We're having great conversations that you don't normally have.
I really like this idea that I'm hearing in what you're saying about you need something, you go out and create it. It's kind of like this selfish altruism where you start because it's something you want, which I think is beautiful, and it expands and helps so many people. And I mean, ultimately, altruism, if you really boil it down, it is a selfish act. And
Right.
that's something that I'm passionate about, is changing the changing the connotation around selfish, because you ultimately need to have a desire to do something for yourself a lot of times in order to go out and help people.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're exactly right, because I always tell people think, and I am being giving, but people are like, "Oh, you're being so unselfish." I'm like, "No, I'm being selfish. This is what I need." So everything I'm doing is because I love people. I love helping people, and it makes me feel good. So it is selfish,
But in the best way possible.
but in the best way possible. Yeah.
Where do you think that love of people and that desire, and for me, it's actually a need to help people. I think for you, it would
Yeah.
be as well. Where did that come from?
Ooh. It came from my childhood. It's from not being loved. And
Mm,
so this has been kind of a driver for me. That's why I raised my son completely different. It's, I raised him with love and respect, and it's something I didn't have as a child. And so it's something I needed. But that's the thing. I still understand it because my father was an immigrant. I was born in Texas. He lived a hard life. He was trying to navigate, society and try to make money on a certain way. So what kind of was thrown out the door was kind of that family atmosphere. So I get it. He was an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. He had me working from 6 years old. So he did what he had to make it here. And so for me is, you know, the financial side has always taken care of itself. As long as I work hard, I know it's going to take care of itself. But it's the personal side that's always been very important to me. So I really strive, I push, that personal side. Make sure you make that connection because it's really important.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your childhood? Because
Sure.
I've heard a bit about it and it's a crazy story.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe. I lived it. And so my father and mother, they got a visa to come out to the US. And so they came out here because it was about to expire. They both fought in the Vietnam War. And so they were giving out visas for it. So they came to El Paso, Texas, where I was born. And so as soon as I was born, my mother took off, and then my father had to work. So he didn't speak. He always tells the story. He had $100 in his pocket, didn't speak English, but he knew construction. So he worked on a construction site, and he met one of the foremen there who, since he had to work during the day, his wife, his friend, the foreman's wife, would take care of me as an infant. And so one day he tells the foreman, he's like, "Hey, can you watch my son a little longer? I'm going to go find work." And so the foreman's like, "Sure, I'll do that." What he didn't know was that he was going to leave me for 6 years. So that foreman raised me for the first 6 years of my life. So I grew up, in a Hispanic household, thinking, to be honest, that I was Mexican. And so that was my first language. And, everything I did all the birthday parties, all the traditions, and I had no idea until one day this Asian guy came to take me. I thought I was being kidnapped because I had no idea I was Asian. And meanwhile, the people that were watching me said, "No, that's your father." So I got taken from El Paso to Tucson, where he had started a construction company. And so on our way there, we stopped off at the airport, and then all of a sudden, I see through the airplane, I see this chubby Asian kid come out. And then my father, who spoke a little Spanish because he worked on construction sites, he's like, "That's your brother." So I had no idea I had a brother.
Whoa.
So as soon as and my brother only spoke Korean. I only spoke Spanish. And so he came and got us. He opened up a dry cleaner, a couple, some restaurants. He had a janitorial service, and he put us to work at 6 years old. So I was 6, my brother's 7. We just worked. I picked up English pretty quickly. My brother, it took a little longer, but, I've been working ever since. So that was kind of the dynamic of my childhood.
And so both entrepreneurship, constant work, constantly taking risks to try new things. It sounds like that's in your blood.
Yeah. It's people always say, like, "What do you do for work?" Or what are you working on? For me, it's not work, it's just life, because that's how I grew up.
Do you see that as an asset in some ways, or is it something that you've had to overcome?
No, I definitely think it's an asset. I think, like, my brother, he likes the steady paycheck. He likes working he's a food and beverage director at Notre Dame. So he likes that, which is great. And so I think some people are naturally born as entrepreneurs, and some people have kind of that natural gift for entrepreneurship and likes to take I mean, I definitely like to take chances. I mean, if you tell me to jump off a building, I'll jump. So it's one of those things where I like the challenge.
You're like The Rock and Samuel Jackson and the other guys on
Yeah,
top of that building.
exactly.
Aim for the bushes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you found that people have always followed you and what you're doing? Because I see how you show up in the community,
Yeah.
and especially with the group. And it seems like if you're going to something, if you're going to host something, like people are going to show up.
Yeah, it's kind of always been like that. I think even in school, in college, and ever since, I've been able to kind of gather people. So, but I think that comes from being genuine. I think people can feel I'm not trying to, because honestly, I'm not trying to get anything from anyone. I just want to just help them as much as possible. And I love to see people happy. So if you've ever seen me drink, and I'm sure some of you have seen me drink, but I get happier, and I'll tell you I love you a million times, just because it really comes out.
I haven't seen that yet, so
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Saturday happy hour.
I'll prepare myself. One thing that is super cool about the group, this local meetup in San Diego, is that you don't have to sign up. You don't have to pay. You say this all the time. Like, if you're here, you're a member. And I think that's so cool. And I've heard other people be like, "Oh, I'm in. Like, that's it."
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's because, again, it goes back to what I want. I've been invited to different groups where it's like all of a sudden it's a pitch. I've been invited to other things that are like, well, here's a membership fee, or so on. So that's why I always, for the base membership, it's always going to be free. Fridays will always be free, just because, again, you'll see people when they come, had a tough week. Friday, everyone's smiling, everyone hugs.
Yeah, I love that. I love how everyone hugs instead of
Yeah,
handshakes and the business card shuffle, the dance.
right,
But I also like what you said is there's for sure a time for handing out business cards. There's
right,
for sure a time for paying for things. Like I know that there's going to be different tiers of the group going forward. And I just like how intentional you are with, okay, this part over here is always going to be free. You can always show up no matter what. Over here, if you want to go to the next level, it's
right.
going to look like this.
Right, and that's more just because even like the podcast that I do is I got kind of pushed into it because I've been the whole intention was to make it free, but I self fund everything. So when we have events, when we do things, the podcast, so on, the marketing, it's all me, and so it's one of those things where people wanted more tools, but I've got to be cognizant of my time as well because I'm running my own businesses, and so to be able to do that, I do need to charge on certain levels for expanded consulting or tools with like our CRM, things like that.
Right.
So, it gives me the ability to really kind of help them, but then, they can help themselves as well.
Yeah, and I'm jealous of you because I know you have a videographer.
Yeah.
And for me, I was telling you as I set up all of this, I schlepped the equipment around. I'm a
This is
one-man band,
amazing. This is great. You're
but
doing great.
soon,
There you
we'll
go.
have all of that.
I love it.
So, what would you say most people get wrong about building community?
Um, I think the biggest thing is they kind of lose the reason why they're building that community because it turns into a business. And I think if you go into it as a business and it becomes, people can sense that. It's kind of like if you've ever had a salesperson just try to sell you. It
Oh yeah,
really turns you off, right? But if you speak to someone that's just they generally they look you in the eye, they shake your hand, or they hug, or whatever they do, and they really ask questions that are personal as far as they want to make a connection. That's I think the difference. So when you're building a community, as long as you care about it, I think it's going to be a success. It's the groups that the intention is really just to make money and it's artificial. I think that's where you start to run into issues.
in today's day and age with so much loneliness. I mean, we're in a huge loneliness epidemic. We have AI doing amazing things, but it's also like, I think it's,
Right?
what is it called? Character AI or something, where it was the fastest growing, most visited place on the internet was interacting with a fictional character AI chatbot
Yeah.
that would essentially become your friend. And it could be like Mickey Mouse or it could be Buzz Lightyear. Those are terrible examples.
Sure.
There's way cooler pop reference ones, but
Right.
that was like shocking when I looked at some research on how popular that was,
Right.
and that people are so desperate for connection
Yeah.
that they're turning to things like that, which is whatever you want to make of it. But I remember telling people about the group for the first time, and I was saying, yeah, it's like no format. It's not like a hot seat. Like there's no structure that you think you need these things when you're setting up a community, but you've proven again and again, like every time I come to something you do, it's like so many people are there. They're so excited to be there. And you don't need all of these like fancy extras to get people.
Yeah. No. Well, especially coming out of COVID, the quarantine, I think everybody got used to kind of the convenience of Zoom and FaceTime. And, you lose that connection because you could try as much as possible to kind of convey emotions on Zoom, but it's different when you're face to face. So, and people have asked to do the group on Zoom. And I think eventually I'll have a streaming kind of platform for it, but you can't really get that sense of feel when you're there. You just know what it is. It's that feel of community. It's that feel of support.
There is a magic to getting real human beings in a room together,
Yeah.
talking about anything, but especially when you start getting into the here's what I'm struggling with, here's what's going well for me, here's a question I have for the group. Like that communal energy, I feel like taps into like our
Yes.
instincts, our ancestors, whatever, our DNA,
Yes.
and we can feel it. And it feels so different than if you're on Zoom. You can get
Right.
a little bit of it, but really just being in a room with someone. That's why I love podcasting.
Right.
You get to sit down, have an uninterrupted conversation with someone,
Yes.
and occasionally you have tech issues like we did, but you get to just be there and explore a
Exactly.
concept with someone.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of chaos going on. There's nothing going on in the background. And, we've gotten, I think I posted a picture last year in January and we had 23 people at Market Space, which is amazing. I always say if one person shows up, it's all that matters. I'm going to be focused on that one person. But we've been getting 60, 70, 80 people at our Fridays. So it goes to show you that it's needed. A community is needed. And, I love getting messages from people saying, I've never experienced anything like that. But to me, I'm shocked because I'm like, this is what community is about. This is what people shouldn't be shocked. This should be a normal thing. And that's why eventually I do want to expand it nationally and even internationally, because we've gotten so far away from kind of that village mentality of let's help each other.
Yeah, and I want to ask what the vision long term is for the group. But before I do, I just want to share a reflection that both you and one of my other friends, Stacy Lauren, are the two people I look up to the most in terms of community building
Oh,
because you guys crush it. And whenever you do something, no matter what it is, Stacy will shoot me an email that I don't even know what she's asking me to show up for, and I'll show up for it
right.
because she really cares. And I think you guys both have that energy of really caring about the people. And then everyone who's going knows that it's going to work out regardless of if there's like an agenda or an activity or an exercise. Like it's just going to be a good time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now I'm going to message you anytime I have an event though.
Please, I'll be there. I just trapped myself. Now it's perfect. So what does the group look like as it grows beyond 70, 80 people as it goes to other places?
It's I get messages constantly about people thanking me about the community because now they have friends, they have support system, or they were inspired to do something, and so for me, that's so gratifying, and it warms my heart. So for me, I want to expand this to other parts of San Diego first, and eventually nationally. I have people that message me on LinkedIn from Cleveland to Seattle to Phoenix to Las Vegas, can they start a chapter there? So eventually, as I kind of fine tune this portal, I definitely want to expand it because if I can kind of recreate this feeling that people have here and that sense of community, and we start to spread it, because I mean, the world it's a crazy place. If you
Yes.
look at the news, there's constantly something happening, and it's this. You see people, no matter what your political views, there's just this divide. But the reality is if you look at the group, everybody in there has different political views, but everyone gets along. There's this community mindset that I want to spread around. So the future, I just want to spread that love and spread that community feeling around.
And do you think that you will need to go and visit these and be the spark, or will other people do it? How do you think it'll play out?
Initially it's going to be me, probably traveling, just to make sure that the people that are going to be organizing it, facilitating it, have that same mindset, and then they can see how I kind of run the meetings, even though it's not structured. I think people will tend to kind of move towards, well, they were at a BNI or they were at this, so they're going to try to structure it that way. So as long as I can get the structure down, I'll probably do it first. But at that point, kind of like I always tell the business that I consult for, you have to kind of empower other people.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's my goal, is to be able to kind of get the structure down so that I can empower other people that are heart centered, that have kind of the same vision to really expand this.
Yeah, lay the foundation, get it off the ground, and then like empower, like you said,
Yeah,
give them the tools they need.
yeah.
I love that. Did you put a lot of thought into the structure of what it was going to look like at the
No,
beginning, or no?
not at all. There was no structure. I knew already that was going to be the networking group, but it's evolved so much, and it's really picked up steam. It basically doubled every week from the beginning, from June of 2023. It
Mm-hmm.
just kept doubling, doubling, doubling. And then we got kicked out of Lazy Acres and then ended up in Market Space and continue to do so. Um, but even then it was funny because at one point Nick had to step away from it just because he had, work obligations and family obligations. But he did say, he's like, June, he's like, I could see you doing this. You're right in your element. And I thought about it. It was just a passion thing. I loved it because I wanted to meet every Friday. And so I thought about it. And then it started to the wheel started turning, and then things started growing and expanding. And I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, you're doing a great job
Yeah.
along the way,
Thank you.
providing a lot of value to a lot of people.
Well, it's really, I always say the group is the community. So many different personalities, so many heart-centered people that are really kind of guiding this. I'm just helping facilitate it.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went, I just felt so stoked that I wasn't alone, because I've been a solopreneur for the past 5 years, and I'm in this office. Before that, I was in my bedroom office, and you just feel so alone and lonely. Like, you have these people you connect with online, but to get together on a Friday morning and share a room with real people is a special experience.
Right. And then even events that we have, workshops, we've been holding all these different workshops. The men's group, we had 44 incredible men show up for the workshop, or
Yeah.
the men's group. And we capped it at 10, but I'm just seeing all these people. It's affecting people's lives, and I love it.
Tell us a little bit about jujitsu. You mentioned you're a professor,
Yeah,
which means you're a black belt.
right.
How much does that come into your life and influence how you think about things?
It's huge. It's one of those things. People are afraid of jujitsu because they watch UFC, they think it's this violent sport, but it's a beautiful martial art. The great thing about it, and it transfers to life, is that with jujitsu, if you go into jujitsu tense and you're thinking too much, or you're thinking about something outside of jujitsu, you're going to get tapped, you're going to get hurt. And then if you have an ego, you're going to get hurt. The thing about jujitsu is it humbles you, and it teaches you to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. So it's not comfortable if someone's trying to choke you from behind, right? I mean, I'm not sure if that's happened to you, but
Oh yeah, it has.
yeah, okay, perfect. But if you realize and you take a breath, you're okay. Worst case scenario, you tap, and then that's it. It doesn't matter if it's a smaller person, just tap, reset, and you'll learn from it. And you get comfortable to the point where you start realizing that, oh, wait, I can get out of this. You know what? I'm not really choking, because a lot of times we panic. And the same thing in business and personal life, we panic and we make kind of these split-second decisions where it comes out of fear. And so if you realize that you're okay, believe in yourself, learn the system, trust yourself, even in business, you're going to get through it. And then I see people, they go from white belt to blue. All of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, maybe I can do it. Then they get to purple. They're like, oh, I've gotten even better. Brown, they're pretty much a black belt. So you shouldn't quit. Just keep going. And then once you hit black belt, they always say as a black belt, that's when you really start to learn, because now you know all the concepts, and then now you can really learn. So it's an evolution. Even in jiu-jitsu as a black belt, I'm constantly learning. I have to, because if I don't, then I'm going to start to fall back. Same thing in business, same thing in personal life. There's never a time that you shouldn't evolve. You should constantly be evolving, but you don't really understand it yet. And so that's what I try to help people do, is I try to help people get to that black belt level so that you can really start to learn.
Oh, there's so many good things you said. But real quickly, how many times a week do you train jujitsu?
I train 4 times a week.
Okay.
I used to train 7 with doubles. Realize I'm a little older now, so I've gone back. But the thing too is, because the group's been my passion, I've had less time to train. So still 4 days a week, every morning, 6:30. So if anyone wants to come train, come train.
Yes, I love it. What is the name of your jujitsu gym?
Gentle Arts.
Okay.
Yeah, Gentle Arts Jiu-Jitsu over in Encinitas. So again, it's a great group of people. And that's actually kind of going back to it. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to form the group as well. The thing about jiu-jitsu is it's a great kind of bonding experience. Besides it humbling you, you naturally have this community feel with people. So like, for example, I do the morning classes. And so our crew, we're really tight. When people have birthdays, they have a baby, we're there to support. And it just becomes natural because we're in battle together. I mean, every morning we're sitting, and I always say, there's nothing like trying to choke your best friend, smiling, and then hugging at the end of it, because that's what we do. We bow and then we hug at the end of it. So but the thing about that feeling is, when I was dealing with people during the day and work and the different businesses, you could tell that they were missing something. And so I always talk about jujitsu, and I always tell people everyone should do it, but everyone should find something like jujitsu that is kind of bonding, but it's different in jujitsu. So I wanted to create the group so that people can get that same feeling, but in the business world, in the personal world, and it's worked.
The group is the jujitsu of business.
Yes, exactly.
The jujitsu of entrepreneurship and all this stuff you come up against and have to grapple with.
Exactly.
So there was something you mentioned that I think is so powerful. It's the fear component. It's facing your fears and getting yourself in that position where someone's choking you from behind and you think you can't breathe, but then you realize, oh wait, like let me calm down for a moment, and maybe it's not as bad as you think it is. That's so true. Like one of the biggest things I'm learning in my life right now is that all of these fears that I've had that have stopped me from doing things, if I just face them and let them come true, I realize that it didn't kill me.
Right.
I didn't spontaneously combust.
Exactly.
It wasn't that bad. And there's always just a little iteration or a shift I can make in order to move past it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think y- I always tell people like the first thing, the typically the last person you see at night is yourself because you look in the mirror, right? When you brush your teeth, you go to bed. First person you see is typically going to be yourself as well. So the person you should really believe in is in yourself. Worst case scenario, again, you have to tap or you fail. In jiu-jitsu, they don't say you fail or lost, you lose. It's basically you either win or you learn. And I think that's where kind of people are afraid to necessarily learn because, in their minds, lose and take a chance. I mean, believe in yourself. You'd be surprised. And the worst case scenario, well, you learn something. You just do it again. So I think, yeah, I think fear is something that really holds people back.
Why do you think it's so much easier to believe in other people than it is to sometimes believe in ourselves?
I think it's really kind of with the way society is structured. I think it's one of those things where everything is about everything's about winning, 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 winning. And you see social media, all the pressures. It's like you see, and people start comparing themselves to their friends. Like, well, look at their career, and then I do coffees with different people every day, and that's kind of one of the common things I've heard with some of the younger generation. They're like, I'm seeing my friends. They're buying homes, doing this, doing that, and it it affects them mentally, affects them emotionally, but then it also affects them in a way that they're not willing to take a chance because they're like, I'm almost there. If I take a chance now, what if I take steps back? And so, I think it's just kind of how life and social media, everything's structured,
Yeah, I mean, that's the core message of the Dare to Dream podcast
right?
is showing people what's possible when you have the courage to follow your dreams. But that is a huge leap of faith.
Right.
There's this chasm of despair and darkness and trying to figure it all out that you have to cross from the point you quit whatever it is that you don't like doing, and then you get to the point where you're doing what you love and it's sustaining your life. Did you ever have that like dark period as you were trying to figure out what you wanted, or was it always you were just working on so many things at once that you didn't really have that
Ooh,
dark chapter?
good question. That's a good question. I think everyone's kind of had their down times, and I think it's interesting. When I worked at Morgan Stanley, so I opened up the nightclub, sold my interest, and then started working in investment banking, Morgan Stanley, and I think that's where it hit me that doing kind of the corporate thing is not for me. Just to do one thing because you kind of had to. You had to be dedicated towards. And for me too, I get very focused on one thing, and I have to succeed for myself. But a lot of times too, thinking about it was always my father's voice in the back of my head, like, well, if I try other things, you're a failure. If I do multiple things, you're a failure. So it's it's one of those things where at that point I discovered this isn't for me. I need to be doing more entrepreneurial things. I need to be doing things that allow me to be me, and instead of being kind of put in this box.
Yeah, because if you're in that box wearing a mask, trying to be someone who
Yeah.
you're not, that is the most soul draining thing I've ever experienced.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've heard your story. Your story is amazing, and yeah, and you learned at a young age. I was older. Well, no, actually, I was probably about the same age when I discovered that, but it was just one of those things where I saw, and that's where I wanted the balance. So for me, personal is big with entrepreneurship. I mean, you really have to take care of yourself on a personal level. But I saw how my father, he just engulfed himself with work.
Mm.
And so there was no family life. There's no personal life. And so he struggled. He had multiple heart attacks. He was, I don't think I've ever seen him really happy, even though he had all the success in the world. And he's actually pretty famous in Arizona, but he was just never happy. So I always wanted to make sure that I had that balance of I want happiness, and you can have both. You can have a work life, home life, and everything can be happy, but you have to find that balance for yourself.
What are some of the steps that you took to bring that balance into your own life to make sure you didn't end up going through your life like your dad?
It was the being intentional about what I do. Instead of just doing everything and just trying to do everything, because if I do too much work, my home life is going to suffer. So I had to be very intentional about, all right, here's the balance. If I'm going to achieve this, whoever my wife has to understand that, yeah, I'm going to put a lot of effort into this, but I also can't put that burden on her. I have to make sure that, you know what, at this time, I got to stop work. I got to pay attention to my wife. I got to pay attention to my son, family life. So it was just being very intentional about being able to balance both and don't get lost, because it's easy to get lost in something. And if you have a project, if you have a business, or you're just trying to get your name out there, it's easy to get lost in that. Just be centered. And for me, that meditation at 2:30 and jiu-jitsu in the morning, just doing something hard. Doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, but if you start your day with something difficult that maybe you don't necessarily want to do, once you finish it, the rest of the day is easy, because you can pat yourself on the back, be like, look, I did it. I woke up at, if it's 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and you normally don't, pat yourself on the back. You woke up at 5 in the morning, you did it. So that carries over. That positive mindset of winning carries over.
That's my journey right now. As I was telling you as we were setting up, I'm just turned 30. Like things are just starting to go well for me in my business. And I feel like I'm still in that climbing the mountain phase. And I am someone who gets really obsessive, kind of intense, extreme about things. And so I'm trying to make sure that I have that balance, that I don't
Good.
not waste, but spend all of my time here in this office working when I want to be with my friends. I want to be with my girlfriend. I want to be with my family. I want to make sure that I make time for that. And I heard this quote today that just punched me in the face. It was, the only people who are going to remember how hard you worked in 20 years are your kids or your
Yeah.
family, because you weren't there.
Yes.
And I was like, holy shit,
That
that
is
is
absolutely
powerful.
true. Yeah, no, absolutely true. And we actually, it's funny because we just had the discussion in the men's group for our accountability partners. But yeah, you're exactly right, and that's a great quote, because you may think in your head, and this is how my father thought. Well, look, I'm providing you a home, I'm providing you food, and this is why I'm working so hard. But you're forgetting about the connection with your kids. And that's the thing. You're forgetting your connection with your wife. You're forgetting your personal connections with your friends. And that's the thing too, is we each reach certain times where the friends that we had in high school may not be the same friends we have in our 20s and 30s. You reach different things. You definitely have to put effort into your friends and that group around you, but you also have to evolve that friendship group. I mean, if we all have those friends that, again, they love to party, that's fine. Again, at my age, I don't do that. And so they're still my friend, but they're not my close friends anymore, because I have to remove them, and you have to kind of really come to terms with, you know, who you have around you is going to kind of dictate the way you live, and what you do and what you grow into.
100%. That is probably amongst the lessons I learned last year. The top two are taking messy, imperfect action is the only way to live. That's how you get things done. That's how you overcome the fear. That's how you learn the lessons you need to learn in order to go to the next step. And the other one is environment, who
Right.
you surround yourself with, and being intentional, especially in the 10, 15, 20, I mean, probably your whole life, but especially that first chunk after college, who you surround yourself with as you're climbing the mountain is so important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, exactly. In any setting, because even, I took your, Bold series, which was amazing, by the way. Everyone should sign up. But it was really impactful to have nine, because we had 10 people in there, right? 9 other individuals there that would share what they wanted to do. And it really emboldened me to kind of step up what I wanted to do. And there was that support where at first you can tell everyone's a little hesitant to mention what they wanted to do, but you put it in such a good way that all of a sudden people started stepping up, doing bigger. And then now everyone's really become each other's accountability partner. We all keep in touch, and we want to track how we're doing.
Yeah, you get the benefit of sharing your dream in a safe, supportive space. So you share
Yes.
it, it's encouraged, and you're like, oh, yeah, maybe I could do this thing. And
Ex-
then my favorite part is you need some connection, you need some resource, and it always happens like this. Someone always chimes in, it's like, oh, I can connect you with this person, or, you can come use my podcast studio to record your first podcast. Like there's
Yes.
always that offer of support that is so powerful.
Yes. And a lot of times too, with your friend, going back to the friend network, if you have friends that aren't necessarily evolving, you don't get that.
Yep.
But if you have friends that you're evolving with that are looking to grow, and here, let me make a connection, let me do this, let me help you out with this, you just see things, just magic just happens.
So it's surrounding yourself with the right people. It's making sure that you have some semblance of balance, especially if you have a family, so that your kids don't grow up sad that you weren't there.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, let me just bring it back to what you were sharing earlier. When you were 6 years old and your dad showed up, I'm assuming you weren't super stoked and be like, thanks, Dad,
Yeah.
for working so hard.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I mean, at that point, you don't even think about that. I mean, I thought I was being kidnapped.
Yeah,
So, I
it's
mean, I was
crazy.
comfortable with what I had and the family I had. So, being a little mini cholo. So,
I love that so much.
yeah.
What is a lesson that you had to learn the hard way in terms of business and entrepreneurship?
Um, I would say I can't do it all myself. I think that's the biggest thing. I've always I don't want to ever burden anyone. So I've always just done everything myself. And then, but looking back, I've had failed businesses, I've had failed projects happen because I know I'm capable, but I just took on too much. I took on stuff that I'm not an expert on, and I've tried figuring it out. And so it was a process of learning that I've changed, where it's now I bring in the experts. I bring in help. I don't try to do everything myself. And it's funny, I took the Jocko Willink Echelon Front leadership course, and it's great because you would think that he's a legendary Navy SEAL, that you would think he'd be hard charging. He's like, just do it, just work, push. But his thing is really, he focuses on leadership, empowering your people. And he even says, if you have an idea that could be 85, 90, it's going to be 90% effective, but somebody that works for you or with you has something that's 70%, let them do it. Because this could be a learning opportunity, but not only that, is they're going to continuously step up. If you give them that power and they know you're giving them that power, they're going to step up, and you're going to surprise yourself, and you're going to be a lot more efficient.
And that's sometimes the hardest thing to do, is to relinquish control and let someone
Yes.
else do it, because they're going to do it really well, but it might not be exactly how you would do it.
Right. Right. Exactly. And you're going to see, and it's going to free up your time, because now you're not going to have to, because, we've all dealt with people that are micromanagers, and they're constantly just focused on, they want it their way. And you see it. You really don't see, they tend to be the same people they were 10 years ago and 15 years ago, just micromanage. But imagine what they would be if they can empower their people, and how much happier they'd be. And to be honest, how much their business would grow if they would just empower the people.
That makes me want to ask you, what is a change that you've experienced in the past 15 years in terms of who you are?
That's another good question. You're good at this. All right. For me, in the last 15 years, it's I love and I give with no expectations back.
Mm.
Where if I was younger, I was always like this. I was always just giving, but I would get hurt if I didn't get the love back. I would get hurt if I didn't get the same respect back. And for the last 15 years, I discovered that it doesn't matter. For me, the if I'm doing it to get something back, then I'm not doing it for the right reason. So if I do something for you, I don't expect anything back. If I give you love, it's true love, but I don't expect it back. The great part about it is that because of that thinking is that I get surprised every day, because I do get it back. And so when you don't expect it, every time I get it back, it's a gift.
I love that so much, because if reality exceeds your expectations, it feels like a gift, like a
Right.
surprise, versus if whatever ends up happening is not what you were expecting, that's where disappointment stems from.
Exactly.
So it's the giving has stayed the same, but the expectation
Right.
has been released. So it's
Yeah.
giving without expectation, it sounds like, has been a game changer for you.
Yeah, that's been huge, just because, again, I get surprised left and right. And I still I will give, and nothing will come back. I'm okay with it, because to be honest, I always, in the last 15 years with like self-discovery, I figured out that everybody's going through something. So even if they're a complete, asshole or whatever, there's a reason for it. And so, but it's not my place to try to change them. But what I can do is I can give them a little piece of me. And if it helps at all and it affects them in a positive way, then that's great. I've done my job, but I shouldn't expect anything if people cut me off or if people are rude in a coffee shop. I'm okay with it. I'm going to make them smile, or I'm going to at least try to make them smile. And then, to be honest, when I do make somebody smile, it's another check at my notch.
That just brought up a memory. You have said something that has changed my life, and it's when people cut you off in traffic,
Yeah.
just tell yourself, oh, that person really has to poop.
Yeah, absolutely.
That has helped me so much. On my way home from the office, getting onto the freeway, there's always cars who try and skip the line and come in at the last moment.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, oh my gosh, that person has to poop so
Yeah.
bad. Like, please come on
It
in.
changes your mindset.
It makes you laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing too is it's like, and that's it, kind of going back to jiu-jitsu too, because jiu-jitsu is so difficult. It's mentally taxing, it's physically taxing, but it makes you just calmer. And I've always been kind of calm. I don't get angry. I mean, I never get angry. The only time I ever get angry is if I know someone I know is getting picked on or something as bad is happening to them. Then I'll get mad. But otherwise, it's so calming. And to be honest, I mean, what does it do? Now, that person that cut you off, they're angry, and then now you're angry. I mean, so you just took a little piece of him. Just, smile.
You just took a little piece of the poison that he's experiencing.
Yeah, and then because you're angry, is that going to affect somebody else that's around you? And so now it starts to spread. So just show love, be happy. I mean, I've told the story before. I call myself a sniper, not a sniper. If I'm in public and I go to a coffee shop and I see someone that's just like angry or not happy, I try to do everything I can to make them smile. And then if they do, boom, that's one more. I hate to say kill, but that's one kill on the sniper. So
I love that. That's hilarious. So facing your fears, we talked about. You're saying something also that comes up in a lot of my conversations is that doing something really hard like jiu-jitsu or whatever it is for you, but doing that early in the morning really sets the foundation for you being calm, you being proud of yourself early on. It sounds like doing hard things has played a big role in your life.
Huge. Yeah, huge. Because I think because my childhood was so difficult, it's formed me into what, I am today. And I think a lot of people too, they kind of have that victim mentality. And so they tend to go a certain way. And for me, I chose not to, because I chose to be very diligent about being kind, being a hard worker, but also having that balance. So I think growing up, working hard, I wouldn't change it, because to me, work isn't work. Work is just what you do. And so it's, but I've seen the results of hard work, and I've seen what happens, and it's surprised me into what I've been able to do. And I see it in other people too. A lot of the students at General Arts, when they think it's too difficult, they come in scared, or in business, they're scared. Like, I don't know, I have this vision of something, but I'm scared to take a chance. I don't want to quit my job and do this. And then I've seen them take that chance, do it hard, and it's going to be difficult. No matter what, everything's difficult. If it isn't difficult, it probably isn't necessarily worth it, to be honest. I mean, you want to go through that difficulty, because when you reach that point where you're like, you can pat yourself on the back, that's very satisfying, and that's the key thing too, is I think people don't tend to kind of pat themselves on the back, because you start getting better, you start to elevate, and then they put more pressure. I got to reach this, which is great. Goals are great, but take your time, look in the mirror, pat yourself on the back, be like, I did it. And then that positive kind of talk will just continue to manifest and continue to grow.
I was just going to ask you, what advice would you give to one of these younger people you're grabbing coffees with? But it sounds like you just answered that question.
Yeah, definitely take a chance. I mean, I love taking chances. If someone told me to jump off a bridge, I want to do a squirrel suit. I know you have to get through but I just love taking challenges and just doing it, because I know I'm going to surprise myself, and I know when I do it, how good I feel. So I think for any young entrepreneurs, if you have a kind of a goal, and a lot of times too, the vision isn't there yet. They just know what they want, but they haven't seen, necessarily how to get there. Well, it's because they're afraid to take that first step. Take that first step. Try it.
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
smiling because that's what Vinny, my co-host, and I, we have said in episode 1. This is going to be like episode 203. And it's
Wow.
always just take that first step, get started, do it messy. You're going to accrue incremental wisdom as
Yes.
you implement this flawed plan, and everything is going to work out, but not if you stay on the sidelines, not if you don't get started
Yes.
because you're still thinking, planning, forecasting.
Yes. Well, and the thing too is it's difficult because a lot of times you have pressures from friends and family. You don't necessarily want to tell your parents you're going to quit your job because you want to do this. I get it. But take that first step. You don't necessarily have to tell them necessarily, but you can also use it as motivation to prove them wrong. But take that step. Register the URL. Register for that LLC. Take those steps, and then you can always surprise them. You don't necessarily have to tell them right away, but personally, because that's all that matters. It's what you think of yourself. Take that chance, and once you take that chance, there is that little moment of panic, but that gets kind of exciting. And as an entrepreneur, you like that feeling. You want to continue. All right, let me take another chance. Let me take another chance. Eventually, I've talked to people and I've helped people grow their business, and they've gone from the first concept to now all of a sudden they have 15 stores, and that feeling every time, you're always going to have it.
And sometimes panic feels like aliveness. Sometimes it's what you need to get off autopilot and
Yes.
wake up a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, because the thing too is you can get stuck. We know plenty of people that work, which is great. Everyone has their thing. Some people are entrepreneurs, some people aren't, but a lot of times people are 9 to 5. They work their job, they're miserable. They just do it and they're like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I want to start a business, but I'll get to it. 15 years goes by and they're just stuck and they're not happy. And so, the sooner you can take, and it's never too late. You could be 20, you can be 30, you can be 50, you can be 60. You can start, you can take challenges at any age.
And that's what I'm learning about myself, is that that's my kryptonite. That's what gets me. Is it's not the person who's in the 9 to 5 who's happy. Like, that's amazing. And I love that for you. It's the person who's in the 9 to 5,
Right.
miserable, talks about how miserable they are, and then doesn't change. That to me just breaks my brain. One, because that was me and I made the change. But two, it's like, what are you waiting for? It's
Right.
only going to get harder as you have a family, have a mortgage, have kids. Like,
Yes.
take the first step now.
And I think that's what happens. That's why people go through their midlife crisis,
For sure.
because I think they get to the point where they start to realize, they're like, wait a second, I don't have the time anymore and that's what they think. They don't have the time to do what they wanted to do, and they have a short amount of time to do what they want to do. So they're like, I'm kind of stuck. You're never stuck. Take a chance. Earlier the better, but even if you hit your midlife, that's your time. I'm not saying buy a Corvette, dye your hair, but I'm saying if you have a passion, and we've heard success stories. There's an individual in the group that he actually was a chief operating officer of a major, company. He's a regenerative farmer now, and he's older, and he did it when he's older. He's happier for it.
Yeah, he is. It really shows.
Yeah.
So I think the last question I want to ask you is super open-ended. You can answer it however you want, but what are you most excited about that's coming up for you?
The group, the expansion of the group. I think with the portal, I think it's going to give us the capabilities of really helping business. We've helped 65 businesses by virtue of me just introducing people and then trying to help them kind of on their business model to kind of step up. But with the portal, it's giving them the tools to be able to do it themselves. And I'm still going to continue to help, but now it's going to multiply. Instead of 65, I think it's going to give people the power to be able to do it and continuously expand. And then, especially with the portal, I'm big on collaboration. There's this feast or famine mentality where it's like, it's my idea. I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to do everything myself. But with the group, the portal, it's giving people the idea and the tools to be able to collaborate. And then they're going to see that there's plenty for everyone to eat it's going to continue to grow. So, my other plan is, especially with the group, is to create a podcast studio. It's going to be the pseudo headquarters of the group, but it's going to be a podcast content studio. What I've seen too is that the new marketing isn't marketing on Instagram and say, just regular ads. It's content. So it's like doing these podcasts and doing as many podcasts. So if we have 300 members, well, if you need a guest and you've already tapped into it, which is great, you have 300 people to ask to be on the podcast. So, and then their followers become your followers become theirs, and you see everybody start to kind of elevate their business and their following. And we know, especially now with social media, your following is big for, your business. So, and it gets your information out there. So with this content studio, I want to be able to create a place where members can start their podcast. I'll show them how to start. You can show them how to start. We can be guests on each other's podcast, but as a central area that's going to be kind of an incubator. We'll help you with content. I have partners with videography, editing, so on. So we're just going to continue to really kind of expand this. And, the 65 was just, to be honest, that was done organically without necessarily intention. Now it's going to be more intentional, and it's endless possibilities.
It's going to be so cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that come to fruition.
Yeah.
And I love this idea you're talking about. It's not feast or famine. It's the pie is growing and it's big enough for everyone. So everyone come get a slice of pie.
Yeah. Yeah. And and then it's a party for everyone. Really, it should be. The community itself, the village should celebrate everyone's win.
Yeah. And who doesn't like pie?
I know, exactly.
And I just want to say thank you. Like, I appreciate you for so many things, for the group, for everything you've done, but specifically, you are the reason why my workshop came to fruition. Like, there were other people along the way that helped me build it and get it started and deliver it virtually, but you were the first person who was like, yeah, let's do this in person. You helped me get 10 people from the group. We used your boardroom at Insperity.
Yeah.
And that was such a big moment for me. And now that I'm getting to do this consistently, is so fun. And I just gave my first keynote last Friday.
Yes.
That was taking the 2.5-hour workshop, condensing it down to 30 minutes plus 15 minutes for breakout rooms. And it's just opening up opportunities in my life. So
I love it.
Thank you. You have been such a positive impact in my life.
Well, thank you, because that inspires me more. That's exactly what I want. I always tell people I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader, and whatever I can do to help. And that stories like that, that's what inspires me to continue.
Well, there's a little more fuel for the fire.
Yeah. Thank you.
Where can people go who have been listening to this amazing conversation? Where can they go to learn more about the group, learn more about this collective studio that you're creating?
Yeah. Go to thegroupcoastal.com. You go there. We have all our social media link. But if you go to Instagram, it's the Group SD. We're on LinkedIn as well. You'll be able to see kind of the portal, the example of the portal. But just come. And if you want, every Friday, 9 a.m., come, depending on the rain, but we're typically at Gudanya, but we're going to be there. Friday, again, is free. Invite people. People are always shocked, like, how do I sign up? I'm like, you're in. Just have coffee with me, though. That's the only thing. And then if people just want to reach out, my cell phone, I put my personal cell phone number on the website. Call me. I'll do coffee with you.
Perfect. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up for today?
No, I think that's it. As I said, I really appreciate you. You've been coming for a while now. I'm not sure when you started, but
no one knows. I just showed up.
Yeah, you just did. Yeah, with the perfect mustache. I'm still jealous of that mustache, by the way. But it's I appreciate you. I've taken your series. It was amazing. It was impactful. I see what you're doing for other people. I can feel that you really are heart-centered and you really believe in people. You believe in yourself. So it's just keep being you. But I appreciate everything that you are.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you, June.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for everyone tuning in with us today. As always, we love you guys, and we will see you next time. If you liked this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the Dare to Dream podcast on YouTube. You want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the amazing episodes we're going to be coming out with in the future. And if you liked this video specifically, please give it a like, leave a comment, let us know what you loved. Thank you so much for being here. We love you guys.